On occasion, I have jokingly said that I would continue to preach in churches in Scotland as long as I could get in, and when I couldn't, I might come in through a window. Well, in this video, I want to tell you a story about a preacher who did indeed enter a church through a window, and how he later became one of Scotland's great church leaders. Alexander Henderson, who was born in 1583, would have become not just a great church leader, but also helped shape Scottish and indeed all British history. He was instrumental in the drawing up and signing of the National Covenant in 1638, and served as moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland when they voted to remove all Scottish bishops in direct opposition to King Charles I. These events would help lead to the Civil War that ultimately led to Charles being beheaded, although Henderson pushed for peace, and like many Scots, was against the beheading of the king. Henderson was one of the key leaders in what became known as the Westminster Assembly, who produced works of doctrine and church structure that are still used by many churches in the world today. But if you had seen the start of Alexander's work as a minister, you would have not have thought that any of this was possible. As a student at St. Andrews, Henderson was known for being Episcopalian, believing in the right of the king to appoint bishops, and he was a supporter of the Archbishop of St. Andrews. By his own admission, Henderson was appointed to his first church because of favoritism shown to him by the Archbishop. At the time, either the king directly or the bishops, rather than the congregation, appointed the ministers to the local churches. Against the wishes of the congregation, Henderson was appointed the minister of the Church of Lucas. The congregation was so opposed to his appointment that they actually shut and sealed the doors to prevent him from entering. In order to gain access into the church, Henderson and his few friends had to break a window and climb in. Not a very great start. Shortly after taking up his post, Alexander heard that the famous preacher, Robert Bruce, was taking part in a communion service nearby. Robert Bruce, the preacher, not the warrior king, was another key figure in the history of the Scottish Church. He had become a thorn in the side of King James VI when he opposed the changes the king was trying to make to the church. Bruce was banished to the north, settling around Inverness, where, to quote from a book written about 10 years after his death, "Through Bruce, that poor country was marvelously enlightened, many brought into Christ by his ministry, and a seed sown in these parts, which even to this day is not wholly worn out." Bruce was allowed to return to the south of Scotland for a time, and it was during this period that Henderson heard that he was going to be preaching. Henderson wanted to hear this celebrity preacher, but he also did not want to be seen doing so he managed to slip into the back of the church. When Bruce arose to speak, he first paused for a while, and then gave as his text John chapter 10, verse 1, and said these words, "He that cometh not in by the door, but climbeth up another way, the same is a thief and a robber." These words caught Henderson off guard, seeming to speak right to him. He was convicted about how he had forced himself onto his own congregation. And we are told in a biography written shortly after his death that they were key in leading him to his later conversion and a complete change of life. He went from being an opponent of the Presbyterian style and not wanted by his own church to being elected moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland 3 times. More importantly, perhaps, he became a popular evangelical preacher who touched the hearts of many with a newfound passion for preaching and a pastoral heart. He continued to serve for 18 years as a minister of Lectors, before finally, somewhat reluctantly, accepting the request that he serve at St. Giles Cathedral in the capital of Edinburgh, where such legends as John Knox and Robert Bruce had preached before him. The majestic St. Giles is located in the heart of Edinburgh on the famous Royal Mile, which runs from Edinburgh Castle to the Palace of Holyrood House. Henderson was also elected the rector of Edinburgh University and was re-elected every year until his death. His contribution to Scotland is nowadays often overlooked, but through his preaching, work with the National Covenant, and as part of the Westminster Assembly, as well as the many books and pamphlets that he wrote, and his pastoral ministry to many, he helped change his country for the better. I hope you enjoyed this account of a preacher who climbed in through a window. Hopefully, if you visit any of Scotland's wonderful churches, you will be welcomed in through the door. For now, goodbye, and have a blessed day.